You're listening to episode 10 of the On Being Human podcast.
Welcome to the On Being Human podcast, where we believe transforming ourselves can positively transform society. Your host, Brandy Fleck, has the honor of exploring the human condition with real people who bravely share their personal stories of adversity, healing, joy, and more. If you're seeking empowerment, strength, and inspiration, listen in to engage and explore tough topics that help us humanize one another, understand ourselves better, spread love, and connect.
This week's guests are Scotty and Carrie Hunt, a married couple who have been on a long journey building their family. This is part one of a two-part series in which they open up about their entire journey from having difficulty conceiving to facing life-threatening postpartum cardiomyopathy after giving birth to precious twins, and all that entailed, such as dealing with the difficult emotions and uncertainty of the future. Thinking that expanding their family was not a real possibility, they decided to volunteer for a church program working with underprivileged middle school-aged children. They credit this program for inspiring so much love for non-biological children, they realized the calling to adopt. They began the process domestically, and after Carrie miraculously healed, the door opened to international adoption, leading them to their third child, a son, in China. Carrie works as an X-ray technician, and Scotty is a real estate agent in the Murfreesboro area. Carrie loves reading, puzzles, volunteering, traveling, and going to museums, while Scotty loves coaching his kids' sports teams, video games, traveling, and camping. So let's hear more about this dynamic couple who faced challenges that ultimately helped them grow together in God and as a family. This episode is brought to you by the On Being Human podcast Love Story Contest. Submit a 1 to 3 minute voice memo file you recorded on your phone by saying your first and last name and what you love about your significant other, or tell a sweet story about how you met or your favorite memory together, for example. By submitting the recording, you have a chance to be featured on a podcast episode in February 2019, and you'll be entered to win a $50 Visa gift card. For more details, visit onbeinghumanpodcast.com/blog/love story contest rules. The submission deadline is January 25th, 2019. Good luck. So hi everybody. Today on the show we have Scotty and Carrie Hunt. And they're going to talk about their adoption journey. And so guys, just welcome to the show. How are you doing?
We're good. Thanks for having us.
Good. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited for listeners to get to know you guys. So let's start a little bit by talking about how long you've been married and how many kids you have.
We've been married 12 years this year. That's October. And we have 3 children, a boy and girl twins, Dallas and Briley, and then Jordan. Jordan came to us last year, and he's adopted from China.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on your recent anniversary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So how did you two meet?
We met hanging out with friends in high school. I believe it was my junior year, Carrie's sophomore year.
Awesome. High school sweethearts.
Yeah.
I definitely knew that. I know this was, but anyways.
That's for everybody else.
Exactly. So I'm really excited to learn more about your journey creating a family, including your twins and your third son's adoption story. So could you talk a little bit about what events did you go through that led you to realize you were called to adopt?
I think it really pressed on both of our hearts. About 6 years ago, we started working with a group of kids through our Fortress program through church. And what they do is they bring in kids in low-income housing that may not have a church or a home, and we physically go and pick them up in vans and bring them to our church, and they separate them out, and we worship with them. Okay. Our first year, it was just me, and then I kind of roped Scotty in, and we did that for 3 years with the middle school preen hormonal kids. And I think after the 3rd year, we realized that we really wanted to adopt. We wanted to have more children, and we love these kids so much that all that fear of not loving a child that you don't biologically carry went out the window. So that's kind of what led us to adopt.
That's really awesome to hear. And you just touched on something that I've actually heard other folks say before when, considering adoption or starting a family, and they've talked about that fear. Did you guys have that before the adoption, before you went through this process? And how did you work through it to that point?
Well, there was some thought in there about that on how would not only we react and love this child, but also our family react and love this child. And there was a lot of conversation, a lot of prayer that went along with that. Just being with the inner city ministry, the fortress of our program, that helped us get over any kind of thought of that. I mean, it was there, but it was very, very minuscule. So that kind of went away with doing that because we fell in love with these kids and they weren't even our own.
Right.
We cared for them. We loved to see them, every week and watch them mature, watch them grow. And so that kind of helped us. And then, the part with the family, we had many conversations. We said, because of different, backgrounds and things like that, not everybody accepts people the way they should. We believe they should. So we basically said, you know what, if they don't want to be a part of their life, they're not going to be a part of our life. And we kind of separate, we kind of just said, you know what, we're gonna do what we do, and that's it.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So, did you guys have conversations with your family as you were going through the process?
Yes.
Yes.
Lots of conversations. I think our immediate family was first. Of course, we talked to Dallas and Briley and asked them what they felt, how they felt about having a sibling, how they felt about all of that. And then it kind of went down the line, parents and then grandparents and aunts and uncles. And I don't know about Scotty, but I was really surprised how supportive people would be. Scotty's family comes from his grandparents come from a very, very tiny
country
town.
Gotcha.
And we were ready. We were ready to go in there and blazing, And his grandparents hugged us and said, "We totally support you." And, they've been amazing through this whole thing. It took us 3 years, and through that 3 years, they were always supportive. So we were very, very blessed.
That's really great to hear. So what are some ways that I want to sort of have a takeaway here for our listeners who maybe if they have a friend or family member who are going through a similar process, how can they support them? And what are some examples of how you were supported?
I think the best way to show support is tell them, go up to them and say, we really support you and what you're doing, and we're here for you. We're here to listen. We're here to support as much as we can, whether it be financially, emotionally. Some key points is for family members to look into the research themselves and look, because we got a lot of false information from people that didn't know. They thought that everyone who's adopted, the mother was, 16 years old, or anyone who's adopted is either a drug addict, and that's not always the case. So
Right.
if you go in with an open heart, and a lot of times ask your own questions, because we never had a problem answering questions. To a point. There's some things we don't share about our son, and that's because that's his story,
Right.
to tell, not ours. But to me, that would be the biggest one. And prayer, just pray over them, that each step shows them a new chapter of God. Each step shows them a new chapter in strength. Each chapter just really uplifts them. I would say that would be the best way.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. That sounds really helpful. And so let's shift a little bit into. I know that when you first started your family and you had the twins, Carrie, you had some health scares during that pregnancy. Can you tell us a little bit about what you went through emotionally and physically, and how it made you view life in the future?
Sure. We found out early on that it was going to be difficult for us to conceive. Um, I had a condition called polycystic ovarian syndrome, and it causes a lot of ovarian issues, causes you to have a hard time conceiving, ovulating, all that. So we found a really good doctor out of Brentwood that really listened to us and really saw that we were struggling. And we started fertility treatments. We started the hormones. We had some testing to prove everything, and it was all, yes, you do have this. And we started fertility treatments with the hormones and everything like that. And the first early on scare was we were actually pregnant with triplets. My son was supposed to be an identical twin, and we lost that child early on.
Okay.
So that kind of always puts that thought in the back of your head when you're having issues or problems throughout the pregnancy, like, oh, what's happening now? But our doctor was very, very kind, and anytime we had any questions, we would talk to him directly or talk to his nurse that worked with us closely. And then later on in the pregnancy, they thought that Briley had a heart condition, which she does, but they thought that it was, with the technology of ultrasound, they were able to monitor it. And they said if she was born early, that it would be a major deal. She was born early, but thank God it wasn't a big deal. We prayed over it, and we just gave it to God. I carried them until we were right at 34 weeks. So that was a month early. And thank God they were delivered big babies at 5'7", and then my daughter was 7'11". So she was a big girl.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, did they end up in the NICU, or how did that go?
They did not.
That's
They
awesome.
came down. They evaluated them. They said, we'll take them for like an hour in the NICU, evaluate them, and they said, nope, they're healthy, they're good. Y'all can love them and everything else. And we went home, and shortly after that, I ended up having some shortness of breath and things like that. And we found out that I had a heart disease from the pregnancy.
Okay.
It's called postpartum cardiomyopathy.
Okay.
It's a mouthful. Basically, it's where your body has a tough time carrying your child or children, in our case, and it starts shutting down your heart. Causes lots of fluid. Your body just can't process it. But yet again, we had a great doctor that when I told him I had shortness of breath, they said, come on down. Let's see what this is. They immediately got me into the hospital, and we immediately found the issue. So we were really blessed with that, because unfortunately, some people do not survive.
I imagine.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I imagine that was really scary.
It was extremely scary to be in the for a mother to be in the hospital, and they say you're going to stay a while your children are at home, and then they tell you, oh, you have a heart problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 25 years old, had a healthy pregnancy. I was like, oh my goodness, this is happening to us? Like,
Right.
it was really a shock, and it was emotionally a roller coaster for me, and I know for you. But we were really thankful we had people there, and we continued on with a cardiologist. We saw him every week. Eventually went every 2 weeks after about a year. Then it went on to 3 months, 6 months, and now I'm once a year. So we're really blessed. We were on 9 or 10 medications starting off to help me kind of keep my heart going.
Mm-hmm.
And then now we're down to nothing. So
That's amazing.
Yes.
Is it completely gone, or is it possible that it could come back?
Well, they suggest a few things. They, of course, suggest do not get pregnant again.
Okay.
Because if you do, we either have one or two choices. We could take the baby early, which we don't want that. We've already dealt with preemies and all the issues that come along with premature children,
Mm-hmm.
or it could cause death for you. So we don't want that either.
Right.
So we decided at that point at 25 to just say, you know what? We have two beautiful children. We're good. You know, it's not worth the risk. And then once a year, they just check it to make sure that nothing's happened. And so far, I'll always be labeled heart failure.
Okay.
But everything is fine.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry you had to go through that, but it sounds like that, I mean, some miraculous things have happened, and yeah, I'm really glad to hear that everything's good. And so, Scotty, I want to ask you, how did you feel during that time, and what did you go through as a husband and new father?
Well, it's a very scary time, because I didn't, even though my parents or my mother and things like that lived in the medical world, I didn't know what was going on. I had just had, she had just had the twins. And, so I'm in shock from that, just trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do to take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
And we take them home, and like 3 days later, she goes sees the doctor, take her straight up to the hospital, admit her, and she's where they're telling us that she's got heart failure, and they're running all these tests and everything else. We're hearing that this could be, I'm hearing that this could be irreversible, that that she could very well die within the next 6 months or a year, just because of complications with this problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also, because she couldn't, of course, leave the hospital, I had to coordinate everything at home with the twins. So I was kind of bouncing back and forth between being in the hospital with her and the folks, my family members and her family members that were taking care of our children, that were at home, of course. So it was a very scary time, very stressful. I was just trying to, even though I had just had, she had just had the twins and everything like that, it was more important to me at that point to make sure that she was okay, because
Mm-hmm.
I entrusted my family and her family to take care of the twins and make sure that they were okay. So I spent the majority of the time at the hospital with her by her side. And then I would just kind of go home just enough when she was sleeping or something, just to make sure that everything's going well there. And also to change clothes or get extra clothes and then come back. So Carrie was in the hospital for, was it a week, 5 days?
Yeah,
Week. So basically, the first 15 days of our kid's life were a roller coaster.
Sounds like it, yeah. And so what I'm hearing is that your family was a really strong support system and was very helpful to you. So the importance of a support system is evident, I would say.
Yes, very much so.
Okay. What about healing from it? Are you both healed from that traumatic experience, and how do you know that you are?
I think as far as healing, I think we've healed from it because we can talk about it, we can share it. We give all the glory to God for seeing us through that. I think that it did take some healing and some toll on us in the beginning. I think that it was so stressful that sometimes the little things, having 2 new babies and having doctor's appointments for them, for us, it took a toll on us. And I'm glad that we were able to be each other's support system during that time, and just kind of support each other. And I do think now our marriage is stronger because of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I was gonna.
Go
Okay.
ahead. I was just gonna add to it. I believe we are healed from it as well. A lot of the stress and anxiety from that did bring us closer and made us stronger. But then also just hearing that, it was 7 years down the road that she was finally off the meds. That is where I was like, okay, we're at a place where I can see, in the future us, growing old together and things like that. When, all through that time, it's at least in your back of your mind of what's going to happen next. Is she going to still be there, 10, 15, 20 years from now, just because of these complications. So
Right. I'm really happy to hear you say that. And I was going to ask you guys before you brought it up if you think it made your marriage stronger. And I think that it's a testament to how strong the relationship already was. Too, because a lot of people, might have fallen apart in that situation. So, do you think that the power of prayer had a lot to do with it? And could you describe faith and prayer as part of your family's journey regarding the success of these things?
Sure. I feel like that instance, that those issues for me brought me closer to God, because we weren't as strong in faith then as we are now. I really feel like that was a turning point in my life to turn back to God. Not saying that, we were, out there just sinning.
Mm-hmm.
It's just we didn't go to church very often then. We didn't have Bible studies. We didn't have a community of people that we do now, because it wasn't as important, unfortunately, then than it is now. And I really feel like that was my turning point to start on a path that I needed to be on. So prayer became more evident in our life, I feel, then. Sadly, but truly, you got to start somewhere.
Right. No.
And that was
absolutely.
I feel like that was definitely my starting point.
And before we even had the twins, and when we were starting and everything else like that, of course we were praying through the whole process of the fertility treatments and everything like that. But we also made the agreement that we were going to raise our children in Christ, and that we were going to make sure that we found a church that was going to be children based, and that way they can grow up going to classes and on Sundays or Wednesdays, or just being involved in a church community. And so that became a very strong thing when we were bringing the twins into this world. I mean, knew Christ from, when I was younger, kind of strayed, especially during my college years, and then, come back right about the time that Carrie and I got married. We, before we even got our wedding license, we met with Carrie's pastor from Clarksville, her childhood pastor, and we did classes with them, and we had these tough discussions on how we were going to handle certain things and do certain things, and so that was kind of the point, the starting point there, and then it kind of just grew even more from when the twins came into our lives.
Gotcha. So we've talked about the twins a little bit, and then let's dive into the realization that you guys mentioned earlier about being called to adopt. What did you have to go through to get your precious third baby? I know that it was a long road, so maybe just start from the beginning and let us know what that was like.
Well, first we started with domestic adoption. We went to, our first step was 6 months of research. We did research. We met with people who had adopted. We met with people who were adopted. We really researched our adoption agency. Were they a good one? Were they a bad one? What were people saying? Because these are the people that are going to be taking care of your paperwork, that are going to be, setting up appointments with birth moms and things like that. Mm-hmm. So we did not want to take this lightly. We didn't want to say, oh yeah, let's just pick somebody out of the yellow pages and go with it. So we did all that first. And then we met with several different adoption agencies around Bentonville, Tennessee, and really decided on which one we were going to go with. And then to start off the adoption process, you have to go through what's called a home study. And it's where the social worker comes to your home, and there's several things that happen. You get a background check, fingerprints, they sit down and interview you separately, together. They send out questionnaires to family and friends and people you work with to make sure that this is a family that, one, will receive a child and raise them. Because we always hear those bad stories, on the Hallmark Channel about abuse. Mm-hmm. And there is legitimately that, but that's what the agency's there to do. They're there to protect you and to protect the child.
Gotcha.
Which is always the upfront thing. After that took us roughly about 6 months to get all that paperwork done, interviews and everything. You make a book for a birth mom explaining who you are, what your core values are as a family, photos of your children, your house. And then when they have birth mothers come in, the birth mother says, yes, I would like my child to be raised with siblings, or no, I would like my child to be an only child. And then that narrows you down from the other couples. Then you meet with the birth mom and, get to know each other. They want to be able to trust you as a family to adopt their child. Unfortunately, we never, our path was never decided for us to go domestically. We went domestically for over a year and a half.
Okay.
And then we are part of Facebook support groups. We went on a website through Facebook, and saw this little boy on there. So I emailed her and said, is this a child in the U.S.? With my heart issues, we never thought we could adopt internationally. And she emailed me back and said, no, he's not. He's actually in China. And I said, okay, thanks. Thanks anyways. And she was like, why don't you just try? And what they do is they send all your information to the group in China and ask them, would this family be able to adopt from your country? And we told them we were honest. We're always honest about it. And they said, yes, she's fine now. Not a problem. So that was a game changer for us, was that we found out we could adopt internationally. We then went through the process of international. We went ahead and did another home study. And that consists of kind of the same thing, but now you have to prove certain things on a national level. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. One of the things is your marriage license.
Okay.
So you take your marriage license and you go to the county. The county then puts a seal on it and says, yes, they were married in this county, and this is who I am as a clergyman or woman. Then you go to the state. The state says, yes, we verify that that clergyman who saw their marriage certificate is a valid clergyman. And then that goes to the United States. They verify it. Then they send it over to China. China verifies everything. And then they say, okay, that one document is valid for us. You do that with about 32 documents.
Oh, wow.
So, yes. And that has to do with also internationally, the same thing as domestically. They want to make sure that you are a family that doesn't have any criminal records, that doesn't have any anything that could hold you up as being a parent, and also you taking a child from their country and raising it as your own. Mm-hmm. So it's a very tedious process. And then afterwards, when you get your child, you end up doing follow-up home studies with your social worker. So you end up having one at, I think it was 1 month?
1 month, 3 months, 6
3
months.
months, 6 months, a year. After a year, you go 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. So they follow the child through this process too. And at certain times, they actually ask you to submit, every step you submit, photos of your child, updates of your child. And then when they get older, they ask for the child to write the government and say, yes, I'm doing okay. So they always want to know that their children that came from them are still okay.
Gotcha.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, that's really good to know. So did you have any choice in that agency you went through in China? Or, I mean, I guess since you already saw the child, he was with a certain place. How did that work?
He was with a certain place. That was unfortunately not our son. Turns out someone else had chose him. Okay. And since we were not further along in the process, we were not eligible. But you can choose your adoption agency. We chose one out of Kentucky. Unfortunately, 6 months into the program, they had to close their China program down. And there's various reasons why you would close a program down. It can be funding, because those accreditations for them are very, very, very expensive. Okay. It can get up to $80,000 per year.
Wow. Okay.
So, and that's not set by them. That's set through the different governments. And you have to provide, it's all legal stuff. But that's why they said that they had to close their program down. They then transferred all of our files and documents and everything like that over to Madison, which is another adoption agency, and we continued on our journey with them. And they have a partnership in China, so they have a office in China that does the programs for them. So they had all those documents of ours in China through them. So you can choose who you want to go through on any level, whether it's domestic or international. Now, some children who are on certain lists are with certain adoption agencies, but as we have grown in the adoption agency world, sometimes they'll do what's called a shared list, where they say, okay, I see that you're going through like our company, Madison. We can transfer their file to them, because their objective is to match children with family.
That makes sense. Yeah. One little detail I would love for our listeners to hear, if they are wanting to go through this process, what is it that was important about the agency that helped you decide to choose it? And what should they look for in an agency?
I strongly suggest, when you're looking for an agency, just go out there and look at the reviews. We're living in a technology world, so it's very easy to get on there and find the good, the bad, the ugly on anything. I strongly suggest that. You do want someone who is Hagar approved, and what that means is this is a world government, not government, but it's a world organization that says, yes, these people are legit to adopt. And the reason why you want that agency is because when you go to China, you want to have that backing that your agency is Hagar, and them too, so that it's not like the Hallmark Channel where you're quote unquote buying a child on the black market. Everything is done legitimately. And there's no wiggle room, because to me, that's what's very important. We wanted to go through someone who was ethical. We also wanted to go through people that shared the same moral values as we did. I felt like Madison was one of those, and we did a lot of video conferences, phone conferences before we ever decided, we were going to go with whoever we were going with. We also, like we said, we talked to people who went through their program and said, what was your experience? Did you like them? Did you hate them? Did you, what could have made it smoother for you as for us? A lot of times when you just sit down with a person and sit down with a group of people in that company, I feel like your instincts kick in and you get this feeling, which we believe is the Holy Spirit saying, yes, this is a good place to be, or no, there's something a little off about this. Because we've met with groups that we won't mention who they are, that we were like, there's something off. And that's what ultimately I feel like directed us to where we went.
Gotcha.
Even within the agency, I mean, when you have your counselor, the one that's taking care of you during this process, and your file and everything else, like, you've got to be very comfortable with them as well, and be able to communicate very well. I mean, when we started from our domestic adoption, it took us about 6 months just to interview with different agencies and find the right one that we felt comfortable with, because this was the very first time we were going through all this, and we wanted to have someone that would be able to sit down with us and explain things to us and basically help us along the way, so we didn't get mixed up in things.
Right.
And then as we went from there to international, the domestic agency knew the international agency and was like, okay, take good care of them. And we got to one that really wasn't the best, and we ended up with another, kind of talking to a little bit another one, and then from there they got shut down, and then we went to the Madison, and Madison was just fantastic.
Yeah.
So
And these people also, they know everything about you. They know everything. When I mean everything, they mean everything about your relationship, about your work, about your life. So you have to be comfortable talking to them because they're going to ask some really tough questions together, separate of your family. And these people are going to be your emotional coaches too at some point. Because there's been, for an example, we had one of the federal agents call my phone personally, and because I didn't sign in blue ink, they denied it. They said, nope, blue ink only. And they said, if you can't send us one document to us in 24 hours, we're going to deny your adoption.
Oh, wow.
So you can imagine how I felt. And of course, when he went down the line to talk to people and leave messages because he couldn't get anybody, they ended up being a little bit better. But mine was the first one. So of course I got all of that. So calling your social worker in tears, like,
it
what
might
are
happen.
We supposed to do?
Yeah.
So you have to be comfortable with these people and be able to, they're going to end up being in your life, and amazing. We've had amazing people along the way in our life that we thank for making us a family.
You guys, what an amazing story of just growth and healing and love, and you just got to hear more. So make sure you come back next week for part 2, where Carrie and Scotty deliver even more heartfelt details about this amazing journey they're on. And for now, to see the show notes for this episode, go to onbeinghumanpodcast.com/episodes/010. And leave some love or questions in the comments. I know that the couple is very happy to talk to anyone who's on a similar journey, so their email address is right there in the show notes, so you can contact them if you have any questions or need support. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Tune in weekly at onbeinghumanpodcast.com for more soul-exposing explorations of what it means to be human. Until next week, love to you all.